Tally-ho there champs, and welcome to the show. Today I will be reviewing, finally, ASUS's GeForce GTX 1080 Strix gaming graphics card, the ROG or Republic of Gamers. So today I'll be doing a review on this awesome ASUS Republic of Gamers Strix GeForce GTX 1080 gaming card. This is the 08G model, and I'll be doing this review, and I actually ended up buying one of these graphics cards, and after the review I'll tell you why I end up putting my cash down what I think is the best GTX 1080 on the market for my needs. So let's have a look at it. It's fairly big, isn't it? It's big and chunky. It's actually 30 centimeters long. It takes 2 slots. It's 13 centimeters tall and about 4 centimeters thick. So it is a big chunky card. But what you get is that awesome heatsink. You get the DirectCU III, which has patented fans. It's a 3-fan design, and they're very quiet fans. Strix are known for being very quiet, and they're very efficient too. You can actually overclock this card if that's your go, and with this quality heatsink and the fans, you're able to get quite a lot out of it. Now, the first thing you might think, actually put the card in your system and you turn your system on, you think, oh, what's going on here? The fans are not moving. Well, that's because it has a 0 dB fan design. What that means is pretty much the fans will only kick in when you're gaming hard. Actually, I was running benchmarks and sometimes it didn't kick in, and on some games it didn't kick in either. So if you've got a case that has adequate cooling, the fans will only kick in during the most demanding gaming sessions, or if you've really overclocked it quite a bit. And even when the fans do kick in, they're very quiet. In fact, my case fans are louder than this Strix card. So it's a black plastic shroud. It's accented by RGBs, so that's nothing new, but you're able to control the RGB to your liking with the Aurora software. On the back you'll see an aluminium plate, and you'll see the RG logo lit up with RGB LED lights. Looks pretty cool, looks hard, looks tough. On the internal end of the graphics card, you'll actually see it's got 2 4-pin fan headers, and this is a terrific idea because what you can do now is you can plug your case fans into this graphics card, and it would actually crank up your case fans when your card gets hot instead of running off the motherboard or CPU temperatures. Now, this card doesn't get very hot. In fact, when I had it running with one single card, and I did run it in SLI as well, but when I ran it with one single card, it never got over 70 degrees. But it's a great idea to have these fan headers there. Moving on to the I/O ports, and you have HDMI 2.0, so you can use that for VR, and you can run VR and have a monitor going at the same time, which is great. Bangkokian will love that, and I'll leave a link in the description to Bangkokian's YouTube channel, and if you want to know about VR, he's the man. And it also has 2 full-size display ports that are 1.4, and they can power 8K monitors and 4K monitors at 60 Hz, no problems. You also have a legacy DVI there. Now, to power this, you have the 6 and 4 pin set up here, so that's to give it extra stability over the reference cards which don't use 6 and 4 pins. And comparing it to, say, the Gigabyte G1 Gaming, that doesn't have 6 and 4 pins, so you probably won't be able to overclock the Gigabyte G1 Gaming's as good as this one. And also you get the bonus of quieter fans on the Strix models. It's recommended you use a 550 watt power supply with one of these. It has 2560 CUDA cores, so that's great for Premiere Pro and gaming, of course. And this 08G gaming model, Strix, in OC mode runs at a clock speed of 1936 MHz compared to the reference model, which is 759 MHz, I believe. So bang out of the box, you're getting an extra around 10% performance in clock speed straight away. And I was able to get it over 2000 megahertz stable, no problems. But if you're an overclocker and you want to mess with the voltages and that, you'll probably get a bit more out of it. Of course, it comes with 8 gigabytes of the awesome GDDR5X, and that has a 256-bit interface. So now let's get into performance. And you want to know, everybody wants to know, how does this graphics card perform? I left it in OC mode, so we're talking about 1936 megahertz. So that's pretty much out of the box OC speed. The rig I was running it on was a 3.4 GHz 6800K Broadwell E with 64 gigabytes RAM. And with one 1080 Strix in there, I was getting 40 frames per second on very high settings on Crysis 3 at 4K. Now, if you knock that down to high settings, you'll get 60 frames per second or over 60 frames per second. And I was getting 69 frames per second on ultra settings on GTA 5. And that's without having to overclock it. You just run it in its OC mode and you're getting those sort of speeds. So that's awesome. So finally, we have reached that day where we can game 60 frames per second 4K at high settings with any game on the market. On Unigine Heaven, 4K high settings, I got near enough 40 frames per second. And on PC Mark, we got 21,935, which was way ahead of 4K gaming PCs there. And it's better than 99% of all results. So you're getting some awesome speed there. So whack another GTX 1080 Strix in and your performance on GTA will go from 69 frames per second on ultra settings to 97 frames per second. And on Crysis, you'll get 63 frames per second on very high settings at 4K. Now, what I did notice is when they were running in SLI, temperatures do go up, especially for the card that's butted up right against the other one. And that card that was blocked in by the other one got up to around 78 degrees. It still wasn't loud. The fans weren't very loud. And still my case fans were louder, and I've got Noctua case fans. So there you have it. The ASUS Republic of Gamers GTX 1080 Strix gaming graphics card is a beast. And I ended up buying one. Most of all because it's so quiet. I mean, there are a lot of GTX 1080s out there, and for me, I bought this one because it is super quiet. I hardly ever hear it. I mean, the fans don't even come on until you really push it, and when they do come on, you can hardly hear it at all. The only time I really heard the fan when I had two running in SLI, and even then, still my case fans were louder. So as you may or may not know, I'm doing a workstation build where I want it to be super quiet. This is why I chose the 1080 Strix. And if you've ever heard of a high-end system builder called Puget, they make super high-end, super quiet PC systems, and they use 1080 Strix because they're so quiet and they're so reliable. So if you're actually going to buy a GTX 1080 and you want it to be quiet, no-brainer, get the Strix. And that efficiency in the cooling makes them really good for overclocking too. So even if you just want it for just raw performance and you want to overclock it and tweak it, because it has such a great cooling system, you'll get quite a lot out of this card. So I definitely recommend it for the hardcore gamers too. It's really easy for me to recommend because I actually bought one because I honestly think this is the best one I can buy for my needs. You will be seeing more of this graphics card in my Build the Beast series, and we'll see how this graphics card performs in an old PC, in a Broadwell E and a Xeon setup, and you'll be very surprised at the results. I'd like to thank you guys for watching. Give me a thumbs up, that'll really give me a help out. Subscribe so you don't miss the Build the Beast, and until next time guys, tally ho.